Alright, so in this video, we're going to answer the age-old question, what is the best fighting game controller? Now, before we get into it, if you haven't seen this clip, Tokio interviewed Snake Eyes about the controller that he uses when he's playing Zangief, and he says something pretty interesting. Let's check it out.
Great. So which controller do you use? Yes, you are always in pocket. It's so cool. After you done the match, we take the big, but you are very
tiny.
Yes, tiny
So
part.
you're gonna laugh, okay? Let me show you.
Look at that. No joysticks. Which is so hilarious because you think like of all the controllers you can have, you'd probably have a joystick, but this man took a pad controller and ripped out all the joysticks. Let's just finish this clip real quick.
Why you break it? Break it.
So the joysticks don't really have a purpose for fighting games.
Yeah.
So I took them out.
Oh, I see. You don't need.
You don't need
it.
them.
Okay.
Yeah. They get in the way, and sometimes like you smack it, and then it like slows down your reaction speed.
Okay.
Yes.
He might be cooking a little bit. He might be
And have
cooking.
like the logos blocked out because
I see.
not sponsored
Okay.
by the controller.
We're gonna pause it there. Now, what's interesting is, if you heard what Snake Eyes said, he said, joysticks are useless. They just slow him down. So he's ripped out the joysticks from his controller. Now, what is the point of highlighting this and making this video? Well, this was a conundrum that I had myself as a newer fighting game player, was trying to figure out what controller I should use and what's the best controller. And I've come to the consensus that there are a few things that you should take into account when determining what controller is best for you. And I'm not going to be here to say there is one controller that is the very best for everyone, because that's just not true. For the most part, you want to have something individualized to you. If I were to go on population and give a recommendation to the general person, I would probably say using something like a fight pad is better, because that's what these games were designed for, and I see a majority of players using an arcade stick or fight pad. But aside from that, you don't have to be beholden to any standard. So let me take you through the evolution of controllers that I've had. So the first ever fighting game controller I ever played a Street Fighter game with, was this bad boy. So what do we have here? This is the classic wired Xbox 360 controller, and man, did I use this for a while when I was playing Street Fighter 5. I didn't play Street Fighter 5 for that long. Street Fighter 6 is really the first fighting game that I've really dedicated time to, but using this controller, man, so many memories. The one thing I hate are the bumpers. If you look at the bumpers, they're very skinny, so it's really hard to press them down in time, and sometimes I would like get caught on the end there, and I would just like not be able to use the trigger sometimes. But you know, this is a pretty standard controller. It has joysticks, has the D-pad. The D-pad also isn't very great. I don't like this D-pad. I like it when there isn't these corner thingies, but that's just personal preference. But I mean, this did the part fine for the most part, and for me, I knew that I wanted to use a controller like this because that's what I grew up using. I would say if you grew up using like a keyboard or something, you'd probably want to go toward an arcade stick or something that has a more keyboard feel. But if you grew up using controllers, probably just stick with them. So the next controller that I ended up trying out was this controller. So this is a pad mixed with a fight stick. So this has a 6-button layout, and you can see here that you got the 6 buttons. And I tried this out for a while, and I like this. Like this controller, if you're a pad player and you struggle with using the triggers, I would recommend this controller, because what it does is it puts the R1 and R2 buttons up front. So usually I would go to the triggers for my extra button mappings, but here you can go here, and when you're doing a combo, you can just kind of go all the way up and down the controller, and after a while you get used to it pretty quickly. And you can map the shoulder buttons to whatever you want. So honestly, I think this is probably the most optimal fight stick for the pad, like the pad format, if you're looking for something like that. And this one specifically is made for PS5. I play on PS5 because I find I go against less cheaters that way, like less people using bots and other things like that on PS5. And so, yeah, this would be the controller I would use if you want something that's a hybrid between fight stick, like an arcade stick, and a pad. Now, the next thing I tried out that's actually really cool is I thought, what if I find like a keyboard? So there's actually a player in the last Capcom Cup named Lashar, and he used a keyboard hybrid with a arcade stick. And so I looked online, and the closest thing I found was this thing called the Hot board. I don't know how to board. I don't know how to pronounce it. But this one's actually really cool, and I feel like if you are a keyboard warrior, this is going to be your best friend. The clickiness, you can program it to what you want. In order to get it to work with PS5, you do have to get a brick converter. So I had to get a brick converter, but once I got this, it's worked pretty well with PS5, and it's going to work with PC just fine. The only reason I found that I can't use keyboard and fight stick controllers, especially in a game like Street Fighter 6, is because of the parry button. So I like to be able to press the parry button and other buttons at the same time, but that's harder to do on a keyboard because you have to use your pinky, versus on a pad you can press down the parry button or whatever with your trigger and then use your thumbs. So it's a lot easier than trying to use your pinky and your thumbs and your other fingers. And the cool thing about the pad is you can use your thumbs for mostly everything, or versus something like this, you kind of have to, it's like a keyboard, you have to use all of your fingers. So if you're a keyboard warrior, this one's for you. This one's going to work out really well. Now I have to show you guys my main controller. So my main controller is this bad boy. This is the PS5 DualSense Edge, and this costs around $200. I would really not recommend this controller. This honestly isn't even the most optimal fighting game controller, but the reason I got it was I really, really, really love the PS5 triggers. The PS5 triggers have adaptive trigger technology. So when I'm in a match and maybe I have like a lower reaction to something and I need to parry or drive impact or press a trigger, it's going to pick up my trigger depending on the pressure. No matter what pressure I have, it's going to pick it up. It adapts to it. So I like that. And these back buttons are amazing. So my problem with traditional back buttons, like the paddle format, is that you'll accidentally click them too much. But with the DualSense Edge, these back buttons, actually, you're not going to accidentally click them. So you can hold the controller like this, and then when you're ready, boom, just press them. So they're completely out of the way, and I've always wanted back buttons like this that weren't in the way, that you wouldn't accidentally press while playing, especially a game like Street Fighter where you might get really stressed out and mess up and misclick something. These back buttons are great. So the controller price is really high, but if you're someone who likes the PS5 controller, and there's also going to be support for it, firmware updates, and you want the back buttons, this is great. Because for me, playing a character like Zangief, I just map his anti-air to one of the back buttons, and boom, infinite anti-airs. Like, the anti-airs just come through. If I want to do EX, I'll just press it with a button up here. So that's my experience, my own personal experience with fighting game controllers. I really just wanted to make this video after watching this, because I feel like a lot of people have been in my shoes where you're like, what controller do I use? Am I using the optimal controller? And I just want to make this video to say Snake Eyes literally ripped out the joysticks from his controller. So if you're ever questioning like, are you using the right controller? There's no right or wrong controller. It's whatever is best for you. In general, I will say the arcade stick is probably the best because that's what the game was originally designed for. But really, you want to find what's for you. And I would recommend just looking at a couple cheap options. I think both of these are under $60 on Amazon. So look at a couple of cheap options, explore how you like to play the game and what your character gets benefits from the most, and go from there. Again, there's no wrong or right answer. Don't let anyone shame your controller choice or your use of controls, because at the end of the day, we're always doing what's best for us. Like, none of this matters to other people. It's just you. No one's going to judge you for how you use your controller. It's really just up to you. So if you like what I have to say, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let me know what you want to see next. Peace.